Hey, good afternoon everyone. It's good to see you all, even at 12:30 bang on the nose. We've got 20 subscribers following and watching already. That's good to see. Hey, good afternoon. My name's Paul. Probably the majority of you already know me. I work for GivEnergy. I have done now for just under 1 year. I'm the head of systems testing and head of system security. So all of the firmware fixes and all the firmware collation work all comes through me. So how did I start at GivEnergy? Well, I used to work for a security company. Quite happy on a 5-year lucrative contract. And then GivEnergy decided that they wanted me to come and work for them. So they persuaded me. And it took them around 6 months of persuading. And then one day I decided to, okay, I'll have an interview and I'll have a meeting and we'll sit and discuss what it is you want me to do. And so, as they say, the history as it says, and here I am. So, I've been given a few questions this morning to go through. They're all firmware related. Okay, so these aren't pre-sketched, pre-rehearsed. I got given them this morning. So the first one is, what are the improvements that you've made in firmware over the last 6 months? Well, where do I start? 6 months is a long time in the world of firmware. The biggest one is faster response, is the biggest one that everyone wanted, is the inverters to respond to the change in load much faster. Which results in less overshoot, less grid usage, and all the less cost to you. How it reacts is now under maybe 2 to 3 seconds for you to make a change in the load, and it will react within 2 or 3 seconds. The newer hardware will react even faster than that. So the Gen 3 and the all-in-one, they've actually got much faster processors, and their reaction time is potentially sub 1 second. It's actually quite difficult to measure because your smart meter is not quick enough. So we have to actually use oscilloscopes to measure the time it takes to react. So a few of the new features that we've added in the firmware, many of you will know, 10 charge slots was added about 4 or 5 months ago now. We added 10 charge slots to the Gen 3 and the all-in-one, making use of all that extra memory space that the new processors give us. So we stuck that in there, 10 charge and 10 discharge. Each of those have got separate targets, so you can set them as you see fit. Those on Agile make good use of those, and we see that on a regular basis. People setting those. The hybrids. One of the complaints we had with the hybrids is how quickly the hybrid responded to PV. Where the sun goes in and out of the clouds. So we looked at how we could optimize the PV. So all of the PVs from Gen 1, Gen 2 and Gen 3 have all got much faster optimized PV response. Which to you as the user means much more PV is turned into useful pounds and pence. Coming soon in firmware is import limitation. One of the new requirements coming under G100, it's not a mandated right now, it's only optional, is the import limitation. So if you've got a small fuse, you can restrict your actual amount you can charge. You can set it. You'll be able to set it to a particular amount of power, just like you can with export. You'll be able to do that on the import as well. That's coming soon. What else have we got coming? Well, we've got dual and triple all-in-ones. That's one thing that everyone is asking about. It was lower on the priority list last year. It's now moved way up my list of things to do. So that is currently in testing. We have dual all-in-ones working in real-world environments for test. We have triple in the lab, all working quite happily. There's a few niggles with it at the moment, which is why it's not yet released for beta testing. Not so much with the firmware, but it's the way that it's controlled and set up. It's quite complex at the moment, is how to configure it. It's way too complex for your average installer. So we need to streamline the actual configurations part of it. LoRa. We've been asked to look at putting LoRa into the all-in-one. So that's what we've done. There are 4 systems out there on trial using LoRa. working well. So that allows you to take out the PV monitoring from the gateway and stick it somewhere else. You know, for example, in a barn, you know, bottom of the yard, stick it on a barn. No problems with that whatsoever. It works. That's coming in the next release of the gateway. External generation for hybrids. Now, initially we thought, why would anyone want to monitor extra PV? You know, you've already got 2 strings. Who has more than 2 strings? Some people now have 3 strings. So we're looking at testing hybrid inverters, string 1 and string 2 being internal, and string 3 and string 4 being external. We've gone away from calling them streams, we call them generation sources, because string 3 could be a wind turbine, string 4 could be a water wheel. Whatever you like, they're just going to be generation sources, monitored by ID2 and ID3. Just like the AC coupled would monitor 2 PV strings, the hybrid will monitor 2 additional PV strings. That's coming soon. What else have we got? We said import limitation. So, yeah, we'll have enough on new features. So if anyone wants a new feature, yeah, drop me an email via the service desk. You'll send it to me, we'll look at it, and if enough people want it, we can look at adding some dev time to do it. Okay, move on to the next question. What is the status of multiple charge slots? Well, we briefly mentioned that in the new features. Multiple charge slots was added in Gen 3 and newer hardware, again because, as I mentioned before, the CPU has got more memory space, so there's plenty of space to actually do it. We had an aspiration for Gen 2 and Gen 1 to add these. Now this was an aspiration, it was not actually achievable. The device physically doesn't have the memory to store 20 slots, 20 targets, and so on and so on. So what we're looking at doing is, so those people with the older hardware don't miss out, is I've put in a request to the developers to add this to the portal. Those with Home Assistant have had this for months. You know, it's not a new thing. So we're going to take the logic that we have for Home Assistant and we're going to look at putting it in the portal. So regardless of what hardware you have, you should be able to schedule 10 slots. Hardware for Gen 3 all in one, in software for Gen 2 and AC coupled. Okay, what is the status of ongoing development of the Gen 1 equipment? So I get asked this on a regular basis. So, Gen 1 hardware, the hybrid, is going to continue to be supported. We have to support it. It's a piece of our hardware. Just because we don't make it no more, we still have to support it. So it will be supported for bug fixes and if there's any security updates to be done, but we will not be adding any more new features to the Gen 1. Example, you buy your car today and tomorrow some nice new feature is there in the new model. Would you expect to be retrofitted? No, you won't. Example, I've just bought a new Hyundai Tucson. I thought it was the absolute bee's knees at every optional extra going. To be found 1 month after it was delivered that the new Tuscan that they've made has now got matrix headlights. Well, I want matrix headlights. Why can't I have them? But it's tough. I can't. So what we've done with the Gen 1 hardware is we've drawn a line in the sand. There's 2 particular hardware variants of the Gen 1. Everyone on the social media will already know that there's a date line between the old and the new hardware. If you've got a Gen 1 newer than week 10 of 2022, then it will have the new faster firmware attached to it. It will have all the bells and whistles that brings with it, but it will not have the 10 slots. Those on the older hardware, unfortunately the hardware is physically not capable of doing it. We have a test that we can run on your old hardware to potentially look at whether it will run it. And if that test fails, we cannot run it. If the test passes, we can. So what will happen if we run the new firmware on an old Gen 1 that is not compatible? It goes bang. That's honestly what will happen. It will go bang. And it has happened. We've had mistakenly loaded it onto a Gen 1 hardware that wouldn't support it, and we had an engineer call to go and replace it. so it needs to be tested. The Gen 2 eventually will also will stop having new features added at some point. When that point is, we don't know. That'll be a business decision. But at the moment, the focus is on Gen 3 and newer, but we have not forgotten Gen 2. Gen 2 will continue to have new features up until some point in the future. What's happening with the all-in-one mixed with an AC coupled and or hybrid without battery? Well, that's an interesting one. All-in-one and AC coupled was never actually a thing. There's no such combination as an all-in-one and an AC coupled as a product. You can do it. There's nothing wrong with you doing it, but you need to manage it yourself in Home Assistant. It's not an official supported design and probably never will be. What may become supported is a standalone all-in-one with an AC coupled, or a standalone all-in-one and a hybrid, using the CEMS, the Consumer Energy Management System, which is our new ENS, which is coming later in the year. That potentially will work with any inverter. Plug it in and it will manage them as a set. You'll end up with a big virtual battery and just one inverter, and the whole thing will behave as one device. But an all-in-one with a gateway, because the all-in-one has to control the gateway, because it's a grid requirement, we cannot support AC coupled with all-in-one and gateway. So if you want to do it, Give TCP, which is our community-led project, will cater for your needs, and it will balance them quite happily. When will parallel all-in-one be up and running? Parallel all-in-one is coming soon. I can't give an exact date because there's lots of things to do to make it work and get it set up. It's one of the bigger projects that I'm working on at the moment. It's been tested. It works. Like I said earlier, there's a dual all-in-one in a residential setting working. It's an absolute pig to set up. And there's a triple all-in-one in the lab. Again, a pig to set up. So that's what we're working on now, is actually setting them up and making it more user-friendly. When that's going to happen, I can't say. I don't know. This is my honest opinion. Until the actual user interface is streamlined, the portal is streamlined, we cannot release that product. I've got maybe a dozen emails wanting to beta test it, so I've put them to one side. I will be in touch because I will be looking for beta testers for dual all-in-one. I just don't know when. Can we daisy chain a second all-in-one to the primary all-in-one and just make use of extra batteries? The answer is technically no, because the all-in-one is a unit as itself. It's a complete box. If you add a second all-in-one, which we've just discussed, you're going to add an extra 6 kilowatts of inverter power, giving you 12 kilowatts of power and 17 kilowatt hours of storage. Of course, that 12 kilowatts can be hardware throttled down to 7.2. That's the lowest we can get. Each all-in-one is 3.6, which is the G98 requirements. So, in theory, yes, you can, in software, combine two all-in-ones to get you 17 kilowatts hours of storage. And you get it down to 7.2 kilowatts of generation. So that might be more appeasing to some people rather than the full 12 kilowatts. That potentially could be doable. Does the multiple all-in-one setup still need a second inverter and even a second gateway? So there's a lot of similarity. A lot of these questions are around the all-in-one. So we'll answer them because these are the questions you've sent in. Multiple all-in-ones will be 2 inverter and battery units with 1 gateway. There are a few on day 1 of the launch who have gone ahead and done it anyway. They've gone all-in-one with a gateway, and all-in-one and a gateway. So the 2 all-in-ones sit side by side with their corresponding gateways. Technically, it works. Whether it's grid compliant, not for me to say. It's not supported. It was never designed to operate that way. So, whilst it's not supported, I cannot recommend doing it, unfortunately. When will the EMS be released? EMS is in work. There's many EMSs already out there. EMS version 1, which is what we've already gotten out in the field as a prototype. There's maybe nearly 100 of them out there in the field. EMS 2, CEMS, as it will be known, Consumer Energy Management System, is in alpha testing. It works. I've seen it in the lab. It works. But it's a few months away. How many months? Don't know. If you think you could get benefit from an EMS, or you're really struggling with plant setup of your AC couples, then we do have a number of EMS version 1 boxes available. They are limited, very limited, because it's a prototype pilot trial. So get in touch with Michael Smith, who heads up the EMS testing. When will the EV charger become commissioned for use with Intelligent Octopus Go? Wouldn't I like to know? Because I have a charger, and I would like to know too. It's a very common question. Everything is in place, our side, to do it. All the APIs work. You can control it fully remotely via API, which was what Octopus wanted us to do. So all we are doing is we are waiting on Octopus. That is the short bottom line. It's down to Octopus Kraken, their development team, to incorporate the APIs that we've given them into their systems to make it managed. We already know it works with Octopus because those who've got Octopus Smart Labs or Octopus R&D, as some people see it as, if you look on your R&D and you've got a car charger, it's there, it's listed, and you can control it. You can control it, no problems at all. So we already know that Octopus can control our charger. What we're waiting on is Octopus Kraken to control it. Over to you, Octopus, please. EV charger config C versus EV charger config D. Another common question. Can you list the pros and cons and clear instructions with some guidance on best practice and how to set it up? Without going into long wordy, I'm not going to go into exactly how to set it up, but I will give you a breakdown of what they are. Config C is where the charger itself does its own solar modulation. So it has a meter. You give it a meter, it will look at the grid and it will make its own decision whether there's surplus energy for it to charge your car. Config D does not have a meter. Well, how does it work? Well, what it does is the charger talks to the portal talks to your inverter, and your inverter says, I've got X amount of excess solar. The portal then talks to the charger, I want you to charge at X amount of kilowatts. And so the cycle begins every minute. So it's a little slow, but it works. And that's the difference between config C and config D. Config C comes with drawbacks because if you're charging outside of your normal charge slot, then your battery is completely unaware of what you're doing. So there's no way of stopping the battery. With config D, because it's portal controlled, the portal can not only talk to your charger and tell it to charge, it can also talk to your battery and tell it to stop discharging. Just as easy. So that's the benefit of config D. Config E is what is coming later down the road, is where the inverter talks to the charger directly. That's still in development. We'll get there eventually. Will there be backwards compatible gateway for the original low voltage AC coupled system? Short answer is no. The long answer is we have an aspiration to do it. The boss, our founder, has an aspiration for dual hybrids and a gateway, but no work has begun on this yet. How far away is the firmware update to allow AC couples to be paralleled up? Well, they already are. The original AC coupled firmware can parallel, no problem. The only issue is how it's wired. So if you want to do it more easily, they use the EMS. The paralleled AC coupled direct does work, but you need to install it with very strict tolerances. There are, I know, many plant systems, old plant systems, 2 and 3 inverters working perfectly fine without any MS. It's all to do with the meter cabling. Do the meter cabling correctly, do it properly, terminate them properly, it works. Rush it, throw it in, it doesn't. Short is the short answer. And finally, here we go. When do you sleep? Do you ever take a day off? The answer to this is no. I sleep very, very little. And when I do, I'm such a light sleeper that even a mouse scratching or a dog scratching will wake me up. A child turning a light on, going to the bathroom will wake me up. So I've always have disturbed sleep. I'm always up during the night. My problem is because I am actually so passionate about this job. People who know me will know how passionate I am about this job. I'll wake up in the night. Kids wake me up. Okay, I'm up. I go to the toilet. Do what you do in the toilet at 4 o'clock in the morning. But then I'll pick my phone up, and I will then start to read my messages, which is not good, but I do. I read my messages, and I'll answer them. And sometimes I even get a response at 4 o'clock in the morning. I thought, who else is up at 4 in the morning? Who else is as crazy as I am? Some people out there are. Or they're working nights. I think they're just working nights. So, anyway. Maybe one day I'll take some time off. I actually have a holiday booked later on in the year. The wife has insisted we have a holiday. And I've been told I am not allowed to take my phone. I don't think that's going to work. Somehow, I don't think that'll work. I might just have to take a different phone and then just check it when she's not watching. Time will tell. But yeah, that's going to be the litmus test. If I can ever switch off from this job. Just too passionate. Till then, as I say, my hobby is my job. And my job is my hobby. So, have a good afternoon, folks. And no doubt, I'll catch you on Facebook later on.